we've found the solution to keep people from getting too worked up about the Arsenal result. We play all the games in Southern California. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yank Gunner. Yeah, look, when it's a beautiful sunset and the weather is perfect and there's not a cloud in the sky, you can watch the Arsenal, but all of the angst and anxiety just ebbs away. And then you hear the ocean waves and the sea breeze, and I will tell you, it is a lovely way to experience the Arsenal. And I do have to say, preseason tours, they're fast becoming some of my favorite things to be a part of, because you can be close to the club and close to other supporters and engage in all the things that we love about following this great club, but with just a notch of anxiety and angst and stress ebbed away a little bit, which is really lovely. And for everyone we got to see yesterday at the tailgate before the game and have seen around town, just been an absolute blast. Feel very fortunate to be here and really enjoying the time with Andrew and James and Clive and everybody that we've seen since we're here. So what we're going to do today is give you a bit of a taste of how we do the instant reaction. We're going to talk about the Emile Smith Rowe news today and then do our instant reaction format, since I wanted to do an instant reaction at full time after the game last night and was told in some fruity language that would not be possible or appropriate at that time. The language might have been a little different than that. So we're going to do that today. So you get headlines, stock rising and stock falling from the game. Give us a chance to get into the game in a nice light way, but we'll touch on some of the latest news to start. So I hope everyone's doing great wherever you are. If you saw the game, great. If not, we'll give you the high points of it, and you can hopefully catch the United game on Saturday at SoFi, which we're looking forward to. By the way, if anyone's coming out tonight to the Cosm Center to see our event, over on my Twitter, I put out the parking information there for anyone that needs it. So that's obviously a very narrow subset of people listening, but it's there if you need it. And here with me now, literally here with me now, is Clive. You can find him on Twitter at ClivePFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello. I normally say, how are you? But I know how you are.
Yeah,
it's been the last day or so. So, yeah, it's been a lovely time. I look out to the sea right now. And, with fresh memories of all the people that we met last night. So, yeah, fantastic time.
We're up to about 11,000 steps up and down the coastline here, looking at houses that are not for people like you and I, but they're still beautiful
like
nonetheless.
Yeah, we're in a very privileged part of the world, and you walk past every house, and we're talking $20 million houses. We're talking, so that's probably being conservative. So, yeah,
it's funny. We're actually looking out at the ocean right now, and there's AVP signs everywhere in front of us, and you could be fooled into thinking that everyone here is just a big ArsenalVision fan, but that's actually the I think American Volleyball group has the AVP logos, so those are all out in front of us, and we are watching people much more fit and flexible than us currently playing volleyball in the background of this. So, Clive, why don't we get into this first just with the Emile Smith Rowe stuff, because it looks pretty close to done now that he is going to head off to Fulham for somewhere in the neighborhood of £35 million, maybe rising to that or just rising over that with some, I'm sure, heavy appearance-laden incentives would be my guess. And Mikel was asked about it after the game, what the deal was. He said there are things happening in the background. As of time of putting this out, it may even break that he's gone. I mean, it could be that imminent. What are your initial reactions just to the likelihood now that he is going to end his time at Arsenal?
Well, I think I read somewhere this week that he's had 3 starts since August 2022. Well, if you care about people, you care about them. And I want him to play football. Simple as that. I want him to play football. And if he's not going to be at Arsenal, he needs to be somewhere else. He's an Arsenal person. He's been there since he was a kid. Go and play. Don't train for 10, 15 years of your life. And when it comes to the critical time, you're not playing because injuries and events and squad improvements have taken the game away from you. So what? That happens to all of us in our job. Sometimes you start a job, you walk into a room, you fit that room, the culture changes, the priorities change, and you know what? You got to find another job because I need to go where someone else really wants me, and that's what he needs to do. He needs to go where someone really wants him. Who's going to rely on him, Elliot? Rely on him to play every week. So imagine training 4 or 5 times a week, and then the squad sheet goes up, and you're worried about being in the squad, not being in the team, in the squad.
Yeah.
And that's where players are sometimes. And I suppose some players will be because, we are improving. So for him, I'm really happy that he's going to go somewhere where he's wanted. And I can't wait to see him play for Fulham. Is a lovely club, lovely part of the world. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him and just watching his career.
Yeah, obviously, I think we wish him the best, just not when he's playing against Arsenal a couple times this season. But do you have a sense on value? I mean, this is one of those really interesting ones because at the peak of his talent, And at the peak of the potential we think he possesses, 35 million sounds like an absolute steal. But a price is always a balance between the upside of a move and the potential risk that comes with it. And we know that the risk with him is very simple. It's his ability to stay fit, stay on the pitch, be available. And so I find it very hard to analyze this fee because if you're just pricing him on his potential as a footballer, I think it's quite a bit higher than that. But Fulham are paying one of their largest ever transfer fees. I think it would be tied with our record sale, I think with like Iwobi, for a player who at this point in his career has never demonstrated an ability to stay fit. And when we saw him last season, you and I were discussing this yesterday, I mean, at 55 minutes, he looked completely exhausted, shattered, 55, 60 minutes. So there's still some fitness work that has to be done there. There's some risk. So how do you think about the fee in terms of potential versus risk?
He needs the rhythm of playing. Our memories are basically a player that when he had that 10-goal season, where it was a 10, 11-goal season, that's the memory that you have. If you're a fan of that player, a real fan, that number might feel a little bit low for you based on those memories. Based on the recent 2 years, then you've got to say to yourself, it feels fair. It feels fair to me. And you could say that Fulham have got some work to do to get him back to that level. And they're going to have to get him to play regularly. He won't be playing every 3 days because there's no European competitions for Fulham, etc. So he has a chance to build some robustness in his body. And he hasn't had that for many, many years. Even when he had his hot period, he was partly injured in that period as well. He was coming off the bench and all sorts. So he's had the operations that he's needed now. And now it's about a new environment with new motivations that come. When you walk in the door on a new company, you bring your best gear, don't you? You bring your best self, you put on your best suit, whatever you wear, and you bring your best self. When you go into meetings, you're listening and looking, and every email means something. It's the same with footballers. Every pass, every touch, everything means something when you go into a new place to establish yourself. And that's what he's going to have to do. And I don't, with number conversations, you never win them, do you? What they say, one man's trash is another man's treasure. You never win them, right? So it feels fair to me. And I'll tell you what's really important, mate, is how we invest it, how we use it. And I think that's what's really important because every person that we speak to, none of them fancy just being second again. So it's how we invest it. That's what matters. And
these academy sales are always good on the books for PSR purposes and other things because it's pure profit. So it's 100% profit versus selling a player that you may have some amortized costs still to pay off. I think it's funny because we are going to wind up talking about it. Other academy players, current, future potential Arsenal first team players in this podcast. And Smith Rowe is an interesting reminder to us about the level of certainty we express about young players, because there was a point in time where I think we would have said he is as sure a thing as they come from the academy. And maybe his commitment to his body, his commitment to the way he trains, his ability to stay fit, all of those things have resulted in him not having the Arsenal career we might have expected. And I think it's just a reminder of how many variables there are with these young players in terms of what they can turn into. Before we shift gears from him, though, since this is probably the last time we'll speak about him as an Arsenal player, do you want to maybe just give sort of your lasting thoughts about him? I mean, a player that I think everybody universally felt very drawn to, very connected to. I think Mikel Arteta owes him a debt of gratitude. It may be overstated, maybe somewhat overstated, but I do think his performance against Chelsea and that Boxing Day victory and the way he helped revitalize a team that was not playing well at a low ebb of Arteta's moment as the Arsenal manager was really instrumental in turning things around. And for that alone, I think he deserves huge credit because who knows if we'd be here with Mikel if he wasn't there in that moment for him. So some lasting thoughts from you on his time at Arsenal? Yeah,
well, he's lived a dream, right? He's done it. He's had 2 or 3 pro contracts and he got a number 10 shirt. He lived it. He lived the dream of many tens and hundreds of academy kids that come through Hale End. He's one of the ones they will put on the wall and say, look what this guy done. He's played for England 3 times. Look what he did. But there's a saying, one of my many sayings, you never fail in football, but you just find your level. And my regret with him is I'm not sure we've seen his very best level.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's what Fulham are paying for. They think there's something there that we can nurture, and that's why people are probably feeling sad about his exit, because they're thinking, you know what, there's a player in there. We just can't extract it, and we haven't got time to extract him. And the only way you're going to get it out of him is by him playing. So he needs to leave this room, I'm afraid. There's no debate, and I just wish him all the best.
Yeah, I feel so confident in his talent that if you tell me he's going to play 38 games for Fulham this season, I will tell you there's going to be a lot of unhappy Arsenal fans feeling that we gave up on him too quickly. The problem is that we know the more likely outcome is that that's not what will happen. And I think nothing destabilizes a team more, especially a team that's ready to compete for big trophies, than not knowing who you can count on when it's time, when you need them.
Yeah.
You know, we're in a similar situation with Tomiyasu. We've brought this up, right? Like him not being available when Saliba went down 2 seasons ago was incredibly destabilizing for us. It meant we had to go to a third option that wasn't really at the level. Players that you can't count on being fit become a real challenge because you know what they could give you, but you never know if you're going to be able to call on it. For me, I will always associate Smith Rowe with Saka, you know, not just for the song, but for that moment where they sort of broke through together. There was always that expectation that they would be the dynamic duo sort of breaking in and really taking us to our next generation, our next era of success together. I'm sad to see him go, but as you said earlier, I really hope he thrives. And I'm glad he went to Fulham because I think it is a place where he can thrive, and we can probably root for him to thrive without too many misgivings if it does happen. I think it's a great situation for him. I do have to say, I think it's a smart sale for Arsenal because we've done this in the past. We waited for Jack Wilshere to get through his physical problems. We've waited for players, whether it was Santi Cazorla or Wilshere, Kieran Tierney. You know, we had multiple seasons disrupted waiting for Tierney to come back. And as we've seen, if you think about the players who have been really important to Arsenal in recent seasons, whether that's Saliba or Saka or Granit Xhaka, you know, it was players you knew were available, who you could write their name in ink on the team sheet and be prepared to roll them out. Ben White, Martin Odegaard, guys that are available. That helps you plan, and I think we just have to move forward with players like that. So sad to see him go. Really wish him the best. And I do think, by the way, the sky is still the limit for him.
Yeah, I think he's a different player now, Elliot. He looks different. He's a different player, and he probably is a left 10, you know, with a right 10 on the other side, similar to how Crystal Palace play with Elise and Eze, or used to play.
Yeah.
And 2 number 10s behind a striker. In that role, fine. There's a term we use called wing fielder, off the left, tucking in, with a fullback running outside him. You can see it. That's what he had. That's what you had with Tierney and our good friend Nuno tearing up and down that left wing. He dropped into lane 4 and did his stuff. Right? And so the game's changed now. Now you want that guy to be on the touchline. His body's changed. He comes into 8 and he does fine, but really not off the ball, not quite what we really need. And so he has to go somewhere else. And I think we mentioned Tomiyasu earlier on. It's interesting to hear Mikel talk about Tomiyasu and say, it's unbelievable he got injured again. He worked so hard. I think that's really key. When someone works really, really hard and they're unfortunate, I think that's different. And listen to the terminology that's used around Smith Rowe. There's always a bit more I feel the player could do. And that's, if you listen and read between the lines, you know, that there's more to come.
Yeah.
And that's not on the manager, that's on the player. And he needs to find out. The penny needs to drop and say, how can I extract more from myself? You know, and the way the pro game is going now, players have personal trainers, they have finishing coaches,
chefs,
they have everything to get that 5% margin. And Mikel can't get that 5% margin for us to come from second to first if his bench players are not fit enough to come in and push the first team. And that's how you get the extra 5 points that we need to win this league. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, well said. I think we can do just a couple other news topics. There's nothing left to say about Calafiori. We've covered him extensively already. This is one of those where, you know, sometimes Arsenal have been good at dropping out of the blue signings that we're not expecting, and it can be quite exciting. And all of a sudden you have a flurry of things to say about it, and your opinion is evolving. We've covered Calafiori. You can certainly go check out the scouting video about him. He's a class player. He might be announced as soon as today or tomorrow if you're following the transfer rumors. This one feels like it's done. You can listen to the last episode to hear what we had to say about it. But there is one new rumor that's sort of floating around today that we can talk about before we get into the game, and that's Fabian Ruiz from PSG. Obviously starred for Spain at the Euros. Maybe had a bit of a down season for PSG this last season. Didn't really happen for him, but a very exciting player. And between him and Marino, I think, two different approaches to the same position, two very different profiles. So the Merino rumors persist. The Fabian Ruiz rumors, again, everything with a grain of salt in transfer rumor world, because there could be much ado about nothing here. But PSG does feel a little bit like a club that's one of the dominoes that has to fall for transfer movement to start going. Yeah. They're bringing in João Neves, it sounds like. Ugarte may be going to United. They're reshaping their midfield and their team in the post-Mbappe era. So I think they are one of the teams that is going to start the dominoes falling. What's your take on the Ruiz rumor, and maybe your take on that versus someone like Mikel Merino?
It could be 2+2 because of the players coming in, and Arsenal looking for a midfielder, preferably a lefty that plays in the number 8 position, that basically a number 2 midfielder next to a 6. And Merino and Ruiz, they were fighting for the same position in the Spanish team. And Merino had the edge until the tournament, and then Ruiz came in and he did really, really well. And Merino basically ended games and played in the third group game. So I think they're very close in style. I guess which one do you like? The one that's a bit more floaty and attacking. And I like a defensive dude. And the guy, the dual monster. To be honest, they're both good players. And when we were looking at Granit Xhaka replacements a while ago, those two were on the list, right? They're very similar to him. And people say, no, they're not, Clive, they're not similar. They don't do this, don't do that. They're pretty similar. They play the role in a slightly different way. Obviously, Xhaka's very pass-heavy. But these guys, a bit more ball-carrying and maybe higher on the dual side of things. So you can look at both of them and say, oh, I understand why we're linked. I understand the link. When you look at a player, I don't understand that link. He gives me questions. I understand the link. What I don't know is, more so for Merino, funny enough, is the quality. I generally don't. I haven't seen enough football matches. Fabian Ruiz, I know him better because I've liked him a little bit longer. So we'll see, right? Like I say, we got to invest the money appropriately. And those type of players, to me, are solid players that know the game, know the level, can play in Europe. And that's what we need.
It's an interesting one with Ruiz. I don't really know what to make of it. I was glancing at the data and something that's interesting. I think he only played around 1,300 minutes this past season. He didn't play a ton. But if you talk about a Xhaka comparison, right? We've covered Mikel Merino. We all know this at this point. Everyone said it. His passing data is not Xhaka. Now, he does other things. He's a dual winner. But setting that aside for a minute, Ruiz's data overlays a little more like a Xhaka, a 90% passer, a lot of progressive passes, a lot of final third passes at a high percentage. But interestingly, this season, that all dropped off a cliff. He played about 20 passes per 90 fewer this season than any of the other seasons before. And as a result of those 20 fewer passes, that's a lot fewer, by the way. You're talking about going from playing 80 passes a game to 60 or 70 passes a game to 50, I think it is. So because of that, obviously, the progressive passes come down, the passes into the penalty area. But he had fewer minutes. I wonder about this season. It is an interesting one because it looks a little like an outlier. And interestingly, both Mikel Merino and Fabian Ruiz, at least statistically, had down seasons this past season, which might be part of the reason that we're hearing rumors about them moving, because their current clubs might be willing to entertain an offer. But just thinking about the two of those, Merino and Ruiz, let's assume for a minute those are real rumors and those are options. Do you have one that you prefer versus the other?
Well, because we're friends, I prefer the one that you like, because we get the other one all year. You're going to say, well, you know what? We should have gone for Fabian Ruiz. Look what that pass. It's a rubbish pass. Ruiz would have made that pass. Look at that carry.
It's a simple fix. Just never misplace a pass, and I'll love him. There you go.
I know how this goes. But next year, my life is going to be torture. To be honest, I know Fabian Ruiz better, but it depends how you want to play him. It's not just the player. If we want to be, pressing Arsenal and pushing and press, if you want to go over the press to a guy that's good in the air, you know what, Merino, I can see it. He's solid, man. He is solid, and but Ruiz, he's a nice player. He seduces you with his skill, and so yeah. But then let's see what happens. I like the links, Elliot. I do. I like them. They sound adult and serious. You don't get those type of players unless you're a club going in the right direction, that's trying to win, right? So, I like it. It
is a bit of a shift because they're both 28, I believe. So, it is a shift to more of a what can get us over the line now type philosophy, as opposed to what we've been doing up to this point with players who are maybe early prime or pre-prime. these are players that can get you over the line now. But we saw our willingness to do that with Trossard and Jorginho. I think we've intelligently used additions that maybe aren't headline grabbing, big money, early prime players to fill out the squad in ways that have been really impactful. And while we all are focused on the arrivals of guys like Kai Havertz and Declan Rice, I don't think you can overestimate just how much a Jorginho and a Trossard have helped fill out the group, give us grown-ups in the team that can come in and do an important job. So it may be the case that that's what we need, one more of those types of figures, but maybe still a little more in the best playing years as opposed to being on the other side of them like Jorginho. So we'll see what happens.
To that point, we watched a couple of players last night that's showing a lot of promise. They're 17. You don't want to shut that door on them because they are decent, Elliot.
Yeah.
Decent. And so, but if they see somebody experienced and senior that's not got a long shelf life, that's good. They can learn from and develop from. But you don't want to shut that door on those two because there's academy players and there's academy players.
Yeah.
And we've got a couple which I think are in the air quotes top level coming.
Yeah, I mean, if you think that you've got someone in your academy that could be a future star as in more of an attacking midfield role, maybe buying a 28, 29-year-old attacking midfielder who ages out of the team at the time that academy player is becoming really ready is a much smarter investment than a 26-year-old that says to that academy player, you don't have a pathway. Exactly. You know, now I do think if your level is high enough, you always have a pathway.
Yep.
But that's another story. So let's shift gears to the game. There's doesn't look like any other major transfer stuff happening, and we'll do the game in our sort of instant reaction format. Headlines: stock rising and stock falling. If you've never listened on Patreon, let me just explain. The stock rising and stock falling is not who is a good player and who is a bad player. It's who, for some reason, some criteria in the game, rose in your estimation or had the way that you consider them rise versus a player who maybe something in the game made you think that it's a little more challenging for them and they may have done something that causes some problems for them moving forward. So it's a little more open-ended than that, but we'll start with the headlines. What's your headline from Arsenal beating Bournemouth on penalties at Dignity Health Park? Is that what it's called? I think we were there. It's beautiful.
Very nice, very nice. My headline is Arsenal are well coached. And I think when you see a team with many different parts in it and players with different experiences, and you still see your team, you still see the same thought process, how you arrive at decisions, how players recognise the stress of another player and make themselves available for a pass to get their teammate out of dodge. All this stuff is pure values and principles. And no matter who was on the pitch, whether they were 17 and looked like 16-year-olds, versus a fully strength adult Bournemouth squad that looked much bigger than Arsenal, much bigger. And to see them still behave in the same way, do the same things. And what I really liked here was even when mistakes were made, they were recovered from in the next action, particularly from the young players. So when they make a huge error, which not a huge error, but you can see concentration error, which only comes from playing more games at this level and more experience. When that error was made, the next thing they did brought them back into the game again. So from a coaching perspective, you're thinking, oh, I like you. You're brave. You didn't hide. You didn't disappear. You didn't drop off 5 yards because you've just been run. You stayed tight and you stayed around people and you battled for the next one. And there were so many positives from that game. But my overall message is we look coached. And I've been a bit worried about the start of the season because the games look tough and our players are sunning themselves, right? So I'm worried about how ready we're going to be. I'm not saying all these players are going to play, but to see the team so well coached has given me a lot of comfort that when we do get going, we're going to be fine.
Yeah, it's funny. There was a moment, it must have only been, like 10 or 15 minutes into the game, where I turned to you and I just said, Mikel Arteta's really, really something, isn't he? Because we just look... We look like Arsenal. And whether it's a mixed team, it's part academy players, it's part squad players, it's a couple first team regulars, like it doesn't matter. We look like Arsenal. Our principles of play are the same. Players are switched on. They're in the right position. And we just look like a mature professional outfit where the players have a real understanding of their responsibilities. And it's a great reflection on the club and where it's at right now, because you look at that team that started that game and the team that finished that game, a lot of players that have never played for the first team in a competitive game. and they still seem very comfortable with what's expected of them and what they're expected to do on the pitch. I mean, overall, just before I get to my headline, do you think, I mean, big picture, do you have any thoughts just on the performance itself, or do we need to remind ourselves that at this stage of preseason, you're really looking at, for a lot of these players anyway, fitness exercises?
It is fitness exercise, and what you want to see from this, funny enough, we watched Miles Lewis-Skelly really get tired in the game.
Yeah.
And you say, he got tired. But when you know a bit more about preseason, they trained twice yesterday, the day before the game, sorry. They trained twice. And this is a new level for him. This is a new level. So what you want from a player when you know he's going to play for an hour is to really push it for an hour. Don't come off with something in the tank. You're trying to get fitter.
Yeah.
So he deserves a massive clap. He pushed himself to the absolute max. If he'd have stayed on 5 minutes longer, I think he would have exploded. Literally. But he pushed it. So now the next time we see him, he's now in a different place, physically and mentally. He can go again. So this is only going to benefit him. So things like that are just so interesting. I just really enjoyed seeing the intelligence of some of those young players. They play with a level of brain and quality. They know when to drop off, and they play with gears, Elliot. They didn't just run around like little teenagers.
Yeah.
They slowed it down when they needed to. They kept it safe side. They circulated it when they needed to. When they needed to sprint, they went. And I thought, this is good. That's why I have to give the coaching staff a hat tip. If you're doing that with this group, you're getting your message across. People are listening.
Yeah, totally agree. I think my headline has to be, and it might sneak into some of the stock rising stuff we do, but my headline is rumors of the academy demise have been greatly exaggerated. There's been a lot of frustration, I think, over pathway issues for academy players, and are we bringing them through the right way? Cheeto could be leaving, and Amari Hutchinson left, and Kosher Dewberry, but there's only so much room for so many players, and you want the really special ones to be there. And when the opportunity arises, you want to give it to them. And I think we saw in this game that we have some special ones in this academy group that are going to probably come through and make an impact for the first team, if not right away this season, probably at points this season and certainly in the future. And the level is so high. And for them to be able to come in and still look like an Arsenal team and look comfortable. And I'm not just talking about Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly, but I thought Salah looked comfortable and tidy on the ball. Aiden Heaven looked great. He had one slip, but other than that, I think he looked great. Rekic obviously had a bit of a harder evening. Carl Hein, is it Hein?
Hein, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
why are you asking me that?
Okay, well, Carl obviously made some huge saves. Did well in the penalty shootout as well. So the academy is producing high level of talent, and it is the reality that with Arsenal being so competitive and when you're very competitive, there's only so many pathways for players to break through. And then when you have this much talent in your academy, there's even less opportunity for players to break through. And so I think we have to be prepared for more academy players to leave to try to find the place where they can make their name. But I think we saw in this game, Clive, that there is a healthy cadre of talent in the academy that's still coming through, and that two of those players that we'll come on to in a bit, I'm sure, are maybe the ones we should be thankful we held on to.
Without a doubt. And I just think it's so interesting. There's lots of clips today. See Josh Nichols' mum, see her son play for the club for the first time. Honestly, to play for Arsenal's first team, make your debut, what a proud moment for those young players. What a moment. They've been doing this for 9-10 years. To get here, just so pleased for them. And it really mattered, and the team they played were very good. So it's just so exciting. So now they've touched and they've felt what it's like. They've heard about it, they've seen it on TV, but this is what it feels like. What do I need to do now to get better, quicker? What do I need to do on my own? They must be barely slept last night, some of those players. Good, really good.
Really good. And it is funny because you know the expression "men against boys." There were boys out there on this pitch. I mean, one of the things we noticed when they were just doing the warm-up, we walked in, you're like, there's some little kids out there. Next to the men of the Arsenal team, some of them did look like boys. And it's a reminder that just the physical development alone that's required to be able to play at this level is quite different when you see a Martin Odegaard step on the pitch and all of a sudden there's this level of quality that's just instantly accessible to you, that it shows you the levels that you still need to go up to be able to play it, for Arsenal. But I was just really impressed with the way the academy kids held up. And Bournemouth put out a team that had a lot of first-team regulars in it, a lot of big, strong, physical players. The game was played, I think, at a good level of intensity.
Yep.
There were good challenges going in, so it wasn't, this wasn't the German countryside under Arsene Wenger. This was a competitive game, and the academy kids held up fine. So let's do this. Let's do 2 stock risings and a stock falling each. That way we can get in some of the players that deserve a mention. Who's your first stock rising, and why is it Ethan Nwaneri?
Well, I'll do that one because I'm always careful what I say about younger players, but there's a time we need to just shut up and talk, Clive. You know what I mean? And Elliot, this is really impressive. Yeah, this is really impressive. And not because he looks silky on the ball and he's brave on the ball and he's got gears, he's got speed. He can sprint away from you. He can stop you, start you. He's got a powerful shot. So he started off in the Odegaard position on the right, but more interestingly, he went slightly to the left when Odegaard came on, and they started passing the ball about like they were mates. And I'm thinking, hold on a minute, this is a little bit decent. You got a chance to see the importance of off the ball play. How was he off the ball?
Yeah,
he was pressing in the front 2 block, wasn't he? Pressing off the front. He pressed back. He protected the ball when he was posting up. I'm looking at the way he brings that ball in. He was flicking around the corner. Honestly, he did that all with a serious face on. He was not messing about. And you often hear me say, well, not often, you hear me say the words, when a player comes in, you have to tear the shirt of someone's back. That kid is going to make somebody uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. He really is going to make people uncomfortable. And so people are going to have to go because he can't be stopped, mate. If he continues to develop this way, this won't be something we have to play, and that's the game.
Yeah.
This is elite sport.
And he's 17, right? I mean, that's the thing. I think when you look that comfortable at that level, at that age, that's a really good indicator because you're not the finished product yet at 17. Mm-hmm. But at 17, to just be able to execute pieces of skill like he did and compete in the duels and be physically at the level and be able to get past, senior footballers, that's a good sign just to do that. And I think he was probably the standout player from the time he was on. He got a nice cuddle from Mikel when he came off. It wasn't just sort of like a little tap on the shoulder or something. He got his moment. He got a huge ovation when he came off. I was really impressed with him. And he's sort of a high usage player. What I mean by that is you can definitely see that he's got that part of his game where he wants to beat one man, beat the next man. He wants to make something happen. Yeah, he wants the ball to feed.
And people give him the ball.
Yep.
Right? So that's a sign, isn't it?
And I think the other thing that can be hard in these games, and one of the reasons I think preseason games sometimes lack some structure, is it is so mix and match. Many of these players will have never played with each other, in any kind of competitive environment, maybe a small side game in training or something. But so to look that comfortable in a very mix and match kind of squad, I think is really impressive. He's a tough one though, Clive. I want to make sure that we're careful about this. From a talent standpoint, he sure looks like he's a player who's almost ready to come in and be involved right away. In terms of the margin for error at Arsenal, though, we were talking about this the last couple of days. It might take 31 wins to win the league this season. There's no such thing as the game that you can take easy or have a day off. There's going to be a lot of calls, especially if he continues to impress in preseason, from fans saying, why won't he play Nwaneri? He's got to play Nwaneri. So what's your viewpoint on how you get him integrated this season without putting him in a spot that he's not really ready for at 17 in terms of our ambitions?
So you have to remember it's preseason, and there is a level of falseness. It doesn't mean you can't see a player, but you have to remember it's preseason. And when the big stuff happens, and there's 60,000 people in the crowd, and it means everything, then you have to allow time for people to develop in that. And so what you hope for is a situation where you can come off the bench. You can come off the bench and do things, but he's 17. The most important thing is he feels integrated into the squad. These guys play with the squad a lot. They train with the squad. And so they've had a chance to now feel confident in training and see what they can do in a training session in small-sided games. Now they've had a chance on a big pitch. And it's interesting watching the interactions between the senior players and the junior players and how they looked after them. I liked it. I liked what I saw. But we can't anoint people too soon. Trust me, we can't. But it's interesting to watch him and how he's grabbing opportunities. And that's exactly what you should do. When you get a chance in the big show with the big boys, then give it something and create problems for the manager. And that's what he's done. Whether those problems are for tomorrow morning, I don't think so, but they're coming. And it's just a matter of time. It's a matter of time.
Yeah, he's definitely going to make himself hard not to use, let's put it that way, with his prodigious talent. And especially if we get more looks at him this preseason and he looks like this, then I think you're in a case where I think we will see him play some first-team minutes this season in competitive fixtures. So for my first stock rising, I'll go with Miles Lewis-Skelly. I thought he was also excellent and maybe moved around into just... This is what happens in preseason, right? Hey, I don't have minutes for you in the position you might want to play. I got minutes for you here, and that's where you're going to play. Can you go give me something in a position that's maybe not the one you'd pick? And he did, and he looked really good. Yep. And I think I'm not really clear on where his role is, but I think he could be a left-sided central midfielder, and in the attacking space, like in that left 8 position. And that is a position where no one has really nailed it down. I'm not saying Miles Lewis-Skelly is going to go become our starting left 8 for 38 games this season, but when we talk about a pathway, that's a position where Fabio Vieira might like to be in the conversation. Kai Havertz probably is. A Mikel Merino or Fabian Ruiz might be. Declan Rice, I guess, if you want to play Jorginho at 6. But like, it's a rotating cast of characters that will probably spend some time there without anyone owning that position. And I think it's a position he could play, if not immediately. To your point, you get a 28-year-old to do it now, and he starts to be groomed for that position in a few seasons. But I thought he showed the right commitment and focus off the ball, playing in a defensive role, and I thought he was slick on the ball. So while Nwaneri, I think, really grabbed the headlines, I don't think Skelly was far behind. Yeah,
it's interesting watching him. For me, Elliot, he's a 6. Well, should I say this? At youth football, he's a 6.
Okay.
He has played 8 for England, and he's a very good ball carrier in his own age group. Just smashes people off the ball; they can't get it off him. And so, but for Arsenal, he played on the left back and tucked in, not all the time, but tucked in. So what I liked about him, he had a very tricky sort of right winger that kept wide, and I thought, how are you going to cope with him in wide spaces? Are you quick enough? Are you tight enough? And you know what? While he had his energy, before the petrol tank went out, he stood there and he could get tight. He could let the guy have a touch and try to run him. I've got you. I'll get a body across you. I didn't feel worried when he was facing one-on-one. I thought that was really interesting. From a trust perspective, I think he looked really good, because that's quite an exposed position when you're a young kid. And so, yeah, again, I hadn't really watched him live before. So that was a new one for me. And I tried to keep my mouth shut until I see him live. And he impressed me a lot. I think his physical development is still going on. These guys are going to be really, really good. And how we use them, well, you mentioned 2 or 3 positions straight away. We're back to where we are. We're now talking about players who can play multiple positions. And that's what you want. When you're trying to build your squad, you don't want 29 players. You want a group that can always come on and give you a solution. And that's how you, in some ways, you save money. You've got people like that, right? So he fits the mold in all aspects. On, off the ball, bravery, loved it. Good performance. Yeah, agreed. Who do you have as a second stock riser? Well, this is my second one, right? I'll tell you now. I'm going to have to control myself with this one, because Jurrien Timber is my second one. And yes, we were all encouraged with the pre-season performances last year. And it's very unfortunate what happened to him in the first game. Very unfortunate. I don't think we realised how unfortunate it was, because what we got coming now, I don't know what we got coming earlier. He played centre-half his game, right centre-half, and I was just taken aback by his absolute ferocity in the tackles, ferocity in the duels, his cleverness, when to drop off, when to go tight, his speed across the ground, his aura, almost like Saliba type aura, in the way he stood there and controlled the pace of the ball progression. I just started to wonder what we got. His decision making in all areas of the pitch, when to drive, when to turn out. I'm just looking at him going, what's going on? His leadership, the way he led the team back there. I just said to Andrew, he's going to be a captain one day. I just blurted it out. I thought, well, I just thought, what's going on here? That buy, I think it's going to be season defining what happens with him. Season defining. He impressed me so much. He impressed me in the last game of last season when he came on, but this is to a new place. And I'm so excited to see him this year. I cannot speak high enough. I don't often get like this with players, but this one, I think he's special. I really do. Really do.
Yeah, he's one of those players that just seems to really understand the game very well. There's a lot of footage of preseason of him and Mikel together talking a lot, and Mikel has spoken very highly of his character and who he is as a person, and like he just seems to read the game beautifully. I think we probably didn't even see the best of him in a sense because I think he is electrifying as a passer and carrier of the ball, but this was a more reserved role, playing center back.
Yep, with a 17-year-old.
And playing next to a 17-year-old, who, by the way, I thought Aiden Heaven was very good.
Yep,
I don't want to be redundant, but I guess I am going to pick Carl as my second stock rising because we don't know what's going to happen with the goalkeeper situation. We have signed a new academy goalkeeper who was he in the squad yesterday?
Nyland, his name.
No,
is.
I
didn't see.
What's in? We just signed him. Why can't I? His name's just gone completely.
This is Stepford.
Yeah. So Tommy, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So Ramsdale, we still think probably will go, although we haven't heard much about that. But assuming he does, I think maybe if he impresses in preseason, he could earn the right to be the backup to Raya. That might be a bridge too far for him. He does have some international experience, by the way. And he was great. I don't know if he was... It was hard to judge with his feet because he didn't have a lot to do back there with his feet. He wasn't doing the high-volume passing stuff that Raya does. But certainly in terms of how he handled 1v1s and his saves, he made critical interventions. We didn't see him have to come and claim crosses much, which we know is a big part of what we ask our keeper to be able to do, and Raya does it brilliantly. But look, if you're a player trying to make a name for yourself in the team, show the manager you deserve a chance. Backup keeper is an area that's certainly under the microscope, and he came in and he got the first chance and he looked really good. So for me, Clive, that's enough to give him a stock rising.
Good shout. For me, Elliot, he's got to go on loan.
Okay.
He's got to play. He hasn't played enough football matches. He's just got to go and play. Because then we'll find out some of the things you just mentioned. What's he like on crosses? What's he like when another coach tells him, I want you to come for every cross. I don't care. Come and take the lot out. What does he do then? I want you to play really high. I want you to play outside your box and being part of the build-up. What does he do then? We got to find this stuff out. And then we'll see, he's really good or not. Got to play. So I don't think he signed that contract to go and to be a backup goalkeeper again. He's signed a contract to say, what's my loan pathway going to be? So Arsenal now got to go and get a couple of goalkeepers. They've got maybe one. Might get two more still. You never know with Dan Bentley and is it Juan Garcia from Espanyol?
I would think it'd just be one would be my expectation.
Well, we'll see. But this guy's got to go. He's got to go out, and Ramsdale's probably going to go out on loan as well. And so it's going to be reshaping that space. There's good articles out there about this. But yeah, to me, that's a great shop window for him in that performance.
Yeah.
And so people that are thinking about a goalkeeper to come in are now going to be ringing the phone today to Arsenal and say, we'll take him because we've seen enough. Against Premier League players in that environment, we'll take him. And wherever he goes, as long as he plays, that's the most important thing. We can find out after that.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I might be getting ahead of myself saying that he has a chance to earn that job, but I think he's the player right now that's playing in that position because Raya's not back, Ramsdale's not back. We're seeing him get the chance to play that position, and he did what was needed in his first opportunity. Yeah. And it may be the case that it gets late enough in the window with the keeper situation that Mikel has to make a tough call, and all he can do is impress. Let's hit the stock falling, and then we'll do a couple wrap-up short pieces on a couple other things. But we'll do one stock falling each. Again, to be clear, the point of stock falling is not this player is bad. It's something about a performance that leads you to think that maybe it was not a positive, and they're in their sort of trajectory at the club currently. So do you have a shout for stock following? I'm happy to go first on this, by the way.
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. So this is going to surprise a lot of people. My stock following is Fabio Vieira. He took his goal beautifully. And I think when the ball comes to his feet, you see the technical level. He wants to shoot. He strikes it really cleanly. At least from the angle I had, it looked like he caught it really cleanly. A really nice finish from him. What you don't necessarily see, and I'm not sure if you weren't at the game, what you may not have seen, is he got a bollocking a couple of times from Ben White for going to sleep when his man overlapped and he wasn't alive to the danger. Looked like Mikel was trying to bark at him a few times from the sideline, the touchline. And this is a player who, if the door is open for anyone, it's got to be open for him. He is an extremely talented footballer who's been held back by injuries, but can play either of the eights. He was playing on the wing in this game, and I think that speaks volumes, by the way, that he was playing on the wing so they could make room for Nwaneri to play in the interior. But the class is there. There's just no question that the class on the ball is there. But the one thing we know you cannot do if you're going to play for Mikel Arteta is switch off the ball. Interestingly, after halftime, he comes on and he gets stuck into a really physical challenge. I think he got booked for it, actually. He was much more physical. It wouldn't surprise me if he got a bit of a rocket at halftime. And I just think this is a guy who hasn't played a lot for us. His Arsenal career now is on a knife edge. He needs to get into this team and make the impact that his talent should allow him to make. And going to sleep off the ball a couple of times is not going to get it done. So while I really loved the way he took his goal, and I like what he does on the ball, what will determine if he can come in and make an impact for Arsenal this season is what he's doing when he doesn't have the ball. And I think that's where he maybe let himself down a bit in this game. So it's a mild stock falling, but it's one because he's a player that I think if we can get him to a good level this season, that makes a big difference for us as a team because of the positions he can play in. So do you think that's a fair recap of the night he had?
Up to a point. I think off the ball, you're right. Well, we were sitting next to each other, so we knew.
Ben White was having a go at him for sure.
Yeah,
a couple of times.
They're having a go. The left back for Bournemouth was pushing on, and they were rotating with Jadon Anthony on that side, and they were rotating into Ben White's side. They diagonaled into that side a lot, and they really pushed that side a little bit. So Ben White needed some support, and there was a couple of moments he didn't get it, and he was right in front of us, so we had a bit of a bias on that side, and. But funny enough, Elliot, I agree with all that, obviously, but on the ball is where his talent is. Off the ball, I'm not saying I'll accept it, but on the ball, he's got extreme talent around passing and moving. But for me, he needs to create relationships on the pitch, on the ball. And that's so important. And Ethan Nwaneri did it.
Yep.
He created relationships by how he moved the ball, how he received it, his position of his body. He did it, right? Fabio Vieira needs to do more of that.
And look, he's not a winger. I don't think that's his position. But
for this squad, he's not a winger per se in the Bukayo Saka Martinelli strike winger, but he is a Bernardo Silva type winger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you have your sprinters and you have your controllers. So he's your controller, right? So for me, he just needs, but he can sprint. And the reason why probably we're being harsh on him is because for me, he's a development player turning into senior pro. Senior pro transfer fee, maybe development wages. But you are in that place now, mate, where this is it for you now. This is the moment. There's a door open. If you don't walk through it, we've got a kid here who's going to walk through it before you do.
Yeah.
And so this is what the squad's all about. Competition. Every minute counts. You know, so I'm loath, you know I don't like stock fallings anyway, but I'm loath to do it because all these players are loaded up. They're loaded up with extra training and it's all about peaking for the time when it really matters. And so what we see sometimes may be just a bit of fatigue and concentration, but your points are valid. They're valid, and I think we both want to see him. We both want the squad to be deeper. For the squad to be deeper and more effective, players like him need to be trusted and used. I'm not sure if he made 1,000 minutes last year,
no.
And if he didn't make 1,000 minutes, he needs to think about that this year and get more time on the pitch.
Yeah. So One more stock falling, and then I got one or two more people that I just want to ask you about who made some appearances that I think are important for what we're going to need to do. Do you have a thought on a stock falling? Anyone that maybe
I haven't got a stock falling per se on an individual, but when I watch the team, I think tactically we lack transition ability. And we need to think about that. You know, I thought Eddie did really well in the first phase of the game when Bournemouth had their absolute strongest and fittest, and they were ahead in fitness-wise. And I thought Eddie did really well, turning them. Wasn't always successful, but he got fouled a couple of times earlier. He got players booked, and he ran them down the sides. And I thought, there you go. That's really good. Sometimes when a player does something when a team needs it, I over-index it because he recognised what the team needed and he got us out. But then obviously he's been training, so he's tired. And then on occasions, we didn't have our most experienced team out there. We didn't have the ability to get out. But this thought had been in my mind for a while. Even when we had our top boys out there, when they get tired, our ability to get out and transition isn't there. So when I'm looking at forwards in transfer market, I want people who run the sides or run through. I think it's really important for us that we can end the game with that threat, that transition threat, that pace threat, that ability to travel either with the ball with power and speed, and we don't have enough of that. So that, to me, without highlighting, there's a couple of players that obviously didn't have great games because maybe the level's a bit high for them, but we found out. But that, for me, is an Arsenal issue that I want to see resolved in the next 3-4 weeks. Yeah. If we have that, I think we'll be in a great position going forward.
Yeah, I think you could gently stock falling Nelson and Nketiah if you wanted, only in the sense of like, these are players who are probably right on the razor's edge of, are they going to stay at Arsenal? Nelson, they're looking at alone. Eddie, there are clubs sniffing around. Here they are playing in a mixed team where there's some of the next generation of academy kids shining, some of the first team players there. And, you know, is there that last moment to distinguish yourself where Mikel says, you know what, I need this player here with me, or are they going out? Now the die might already be cast with both of them.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
it likely is if that's the decision. So
I thought they did okay. I thought they showed brightness in patches.
Well, Nelson, did he have the assist for the Vieira?
Yeah, Nelson had a chance to have a shot just before that. He turned it down. He passed it to Eddie. And then he was a bit angry the next time he got the ball, and he skinned his man and clipped it to the back post, and Vieira volleyed it in. He's got that in him. He's got something, that boy. He really has something. Just sometimes, Andrew said it actually, something in his words. Sometimes the last action is inconsistent, you know. But he can play. So again, got to find a place to play.
Yeah, I think it is fun sitting with Andrew watching Ben White play football because Andrew's just so taken with him. But I do have to just say this because I don't know if it'll come through where you may have watched the game. Ben White, just his commitment to shithousing is nonstop. So, you know, he's still, even in preseason on the corners, he's standing on the goalkeeper's toes, and he's having to go, tripped up a player once and just walked away from him. And he just has a very unique approach to the game. And there was one really nice moment once Odegaard was on the pitch where Odegaard kind of backheeled it in the penalty area to Ben White. But just Ben White's intelligence to know
unreal.
That space is there, and Martin has the talent to find me. And I think it has to be said that when Odegaard came on, there is this thing that happens when you're watching preseason. We're like, oh, he looks good, this looks good, that looks good. And then someone special enters the game, and you can't miss it. It's effortless, unmistakable quality. And Odegaard certainly brings that quality onto the pitch in a way that stands out. But the one other player I want to talk about before we get out of here is Gabriel Jesus. This is a very, very important moment in his career and for us as a team, because I think we all know whatever's available in the transfer market, nothing's probably going to help us as much as if we get peak Martinelli and Jesus available to us this season. Yeah. Martinelli will be back the 25th, so that is today. He'll be joining up, as will Gabriel Magalhaes and Kai Havertz. But Jesus was out there. He's got a full preseason. There's no strapping on the knee. He looks fit.
He does.
I thought it was a mixed game from him. There was one time where I think he could have taken a shot early and did the thing where he tried to have the extra dribble. But the thing that I love that Jesus does that I think is so underrated is the way he gets his body into his marker and uses his lower body strength to back in and win the balls. And the way he lays it off to teammates, he's very, very intelligent. I thought he looked pretty sharp. But what I thought I saw, and maybe I'm just wanting to see it, he looked a little burstier to me.
Yeah.
Like that explosiveness is still there, and I just feel like him being at his peak of his powers for us again it would be really impactful. So do you have any way too early thoughts about how he looked?
I thought he looked great. And again, back to my thing about creating relationships. When he comes in, people run off him, don't they? They run around corners, they run off him. They know what he's going to do. He runs off at an angle to receive the ball, doesn't receive the ball straight in, then bounces off him. He gets himself into great positions. He spent a bit of time on the left wing as well. Again, I think we saw Timber, we saw Ethan, and we saw Jesus in this game. That's 3 players we're talking about that are added to the squad straight away. Straight away. I have no doubt. If he stays healthy, I mean proper healthy, we have a senior 27-year-old player that's won 4 Premier Leagues coming back into our team. That really, if we're honest, has been fighting for his fitness since the World Cup a year and a half ago. Right? So he's back and he's got a big year ahead of him. And mate, played out wide, playing centre forward, rotating. He plays our football. There's nothing to worry about here if he's healthy. Nothing at all.
Yeah, I totally agree. So last thing, it's United at SoFi on Saturday. We know that United don't play friendlies. I do think that it'll be potentially a pretty feisty game. I mean, I think that there's no love lost between those teams, and United will want to put a marker down because they think that somehow winning in preseason means something, which we saw it didn't last summer, but we'll see what happens this time. Do you have any quick hopes for the game aside from like Ricardo Calafiori coming on in the second half and laying on 3 assists to Martinelli? Is there something from that game that you just are really looking forward to?
The most important thing is always come off the pitch with no injuries.
Yeah.
I know it sounds boring, Elliot, but that's the truth. When you're building up your fitness, you're building up your load into your body. Just make sure it stays there. You'd have to taper down to come back again. The come off the pitch, no injuries is really, really key. United are going through a bit of a new broom phase, aren't they? All their execs are in the building. Dan Ashworth is there. Players are coming in. Potential players are going. More players are coming. The airways are full of their rumours. And they ended the season in a very positive moment against City at Wembley. And so they're going to come in, and Arsenal are sitting there as the scalp, aren't we? We are the scalp people want. I say that, maybe that's unfair, but there's an expectation we're going to keep growing. I think we are. And so the way to sort of make yourself look good is to punch one of the biggest guys in the playground. Just punch him straight in the face. Then you feel stronger yourself. And so we got to be wary of that. We got to be wary of it. But I'm looking around at players like Timber and White. I'm not too bothered. Are you bothered? Seriously?
Nope.
Not too bothered. Okay, we look at lacking experience in goal. And but I looked at some of their pre-season teams, and they've got similar problems with their teams. In the next week or so, people are going to come back, and when Arsenal come back to London, they got by Leverkusen and Lyon. That's when it gets proper serious. Yep. That's when the boys, everyone will be back, and you can start to see your team. So yeah, just get off the pitch, Scott, without any damage. And it'd be nice for us to see a win, obviously.
Yeah.
And but I'm confident we're going to play our football. Very confident.
Yeah, I think obviously maybe another opportunity for Nwaneri to impress, maybe against even slightly sterner opposition. But we'll see what Mikel wants to do. If he will try to keep more of the first team players together for more of this game, how much he steps up the intensity of the preparation. I'm just really looking forward to it. I get so stressed out by the season. The season is so intense and so stressful. To be able to be around Arsenal people and see the team and enjoy watching them play and draw some conclusions that are way too early and have some opinions that are way too bad, but it doesn't matter too much because the stakes are low.
Just learn.
It's just nice.
Just learn. And also, honestly, Elliot, let's be honest, we know each other well now, but we met a lot of people we're starting to get to know, a lot of people that support us and support what we do. And to me, that's as big as the games, mate. Well, honestly, it's an absolute highlight. And so, more of that on the weekend, and I'll be happy with that.
Amen. We did win on penalty shootout, by the way, so that's nice. So we got a first win under our belt there. I guess we also beat Leyton Orient the other day. So
should have given Trossard a stop falling, shouldn't I? I forgot that one.
Post.
He looked a bit tired, that boy.
Yeah, he hit the post. So we'll see what happens. And then obviously we will do an instant reaction over on Patreon for that game, because there'll be more of an opportunity for us to do that from a technical standpoint, and then have a main pod out for you on Monday. But until then, we just hope to see some people at our event tonight, see some people out and about in LA, and then it's back home, and before you know it, the season will be here, and before you know it, we'll be lifting the Premier League and Champions League trophies. So
absolutely,
one thing leads to the next. I think we'll leave it there for now. Clive's on Twitter, ClivePFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, and Gunner, we love you, and we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, United 0.